The Joe Rogan Experience.
What do you think about the concept of universal basic income?
Yeah, no. I mean, I don't think that's a good idea.
But when you have a situation like a pandemic where so many people, through no fault of their own, are being forced out of work, they cannot work.
That's a temporary situation.
But isn't that a good argument for universal basic income, at least for a temporary situation?
Well, when people are sick, they need to be taken care of. When they're healthy, they don't need to be taken care of. They need to stand on their own 2 feet.
Right, but when you have a situation where they can't stand on their own 2 feet because they're literally not allowed to work, like California. I mean, California, they're right now shutting down restaurants that serve outside.
Yeah, well, I mean, the alternative is not to shut down the economy.
Yes. No, listen, I agree. But there's a lot of people that they get really hysterical about this, and they think this is the only way we're going to save people. There's a lot of people out there with terrible health, and they think that what we need to do is shut everything down, and that's the only way we're going to be safe. I was reading this woman's Twitter the other day. I just someone said something ridiculous, and I'm like, oh my God, I need to check this person out. And they were talking about, hey, I am ready to lock everything down for 5 weeks. I don't go outside. I stay away from everybody. I order my groceries delivered. I'm ready to lock down for 5 weeks. I'm like, this is the most simplistic and individual perception of this problem, that everyone should do what you're capable of doing. That most people can't do this if they have a fucking business. Mm-hmm. Like, they can't, I'm ready to lock down for 5 weeks. Well, congratulations to you. But some guy who runs figure out whatever store it is or whatever kind of business, they need to be there in order to be open, to stay alive. There's no other way to keep that business alive. They have rent, they have overhead, they have employees.
Do you know the history of the 1918-1919 influenza epidemic? That's the worst pandemic that we know of in our modern history, and that's only 100 years ago. And 50 million people died worldwide. I mean, how many people died worldwide in COVID? A couple million at this point. And the population was 4 times greater then. They didn't shut anything down back then.
What do you mean the population was 4 times greater then?
No, it's 4 times greater now than then. It was 25%. It was 1.8 billion people back 100 years ago across the world.
So you could scale that up pretty largely.
Yeah, exactly. And that was a killer that didn't just take people with comorbidities. It took children. It took healthy adults. It was non-discriminatory disease. And we took precautions. People, social distanced. But at the end of the day, the economy did not shut down. Humanity went on with their lives. And this is not nearly the same type of pandemic that we had back then. It's very interesting the time that we live in, the reaction that we're having today to COVID being so very different than the reaction we had to the influenza epidemic of 1918 and 1919, which was far more destructive. It's I don't know, it's just food for thought. It's very interesting.
Well, what was the difference? What's the difference in the reaction of today versus the reaction from 1918?
The reaction back then was individual responsibility to do what was necessary to protect yourself and your family. But other than that, life went on. And there was no governmental, not nearly the same level of...
They had mask mandates, though, didn't they?
If you go back and read about it, that not any kind of national type of mask mandate. Certain small communities did it. It was just all so much smaller in scale.
I didn't even know they wore masks. We've been looking at it because we've been looking at a lot of photos from back in the day. It's kind of crazy to see.
Because they did.
Yeah.
And, I mean, people were scared and they wanted to protect themselves and their family, and they did what they thought was necessary. Yeah. It's just interesting how much different we're reacting to this one, to me. And we are doing great harm, and we don't see the harm that we're doing. We don't see the small businesses failing, the suicide rates going up, the domestic violence, the isolation, the mental or emotional health problems people have by not being able to connect with each other, not being able to physically touch.
Yeah.
The kids that are missing out in school and in person. That speaking as a man who was once a little boy. Little boys need to play. They also need to connect. They can't just watch a screen.
Yeah, kids. I've
they need to be more interactive.
Two kids in school right now, and it's soul sucking watching them stare at a laptop.
Yeah.
And then I sat in my daughter's room once and watched the teacher teach the class, and Jesus Christ, this lady could have not been less motivated. It was horrible to watch.
Yeah,
motivating or motivated. They're lazy.
Well, hopefully these vaccinations are going to be as effective as they're reporting, and will not have side effects, and that a year from now this will be in the rearview mirror.
Episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience are now free on Spotify. That's right, they're free. From September 1st to December 1st, they're going to be available everywhere. But after December 1st, they will only be available on Spotify, but they will be free. That includes the video. The video will also be there. It'll also be free. That's all we're asking. Just go download Spotify. Much love. Bye-bye.